Hello there and welcome to the Card Grotto. Today I'm sharing 3 ways to add metallic elements to Christmas or holiday projects in a clean and simple way using elements from the Spellbinders Warm Holiday Wishes kit. So I'm starting off by creating some kind of like mini cards using the Kaleidoscope Plaid set. And this set, as you can see there, has 3 different dies in it, and they all create like a plaid pattern if you stack them on top of each other. So I'm starting off with kind of like what would be my bottom piece, and I'm cutting that from some fairly dark greenish cardstock. I'm going with traditional kind of Christmas colours of red, green and gold for this particular one, and I do make a few different samples using different colours. So this is the candy apple cardstock from Spellbinders, just using the all-in-one there just to help me remove the excess pieces from the inside and then the pokey end to be able to get that piece out. You can layer these up in any way you wanted to, but I'm kind of layering it up in, the way that it's kind of planned to be. But I think with another one of these samples, I did layer them up slightly different. This is the Spellbinders To You and Yours stamp set that comes in the kit. As of this moment of me making the voiceover, I do believe that the kit as a whole is sold out. But like I said, you can purchase all of the elements separately now, which is really good. So I've just cut that sentiment piece apart and I'm stamping that down into the mini misty here with some FSJ black licorice ink onto white cardstock, and I'm just going to stamp that twice just so that I get a really nice impression, and then I'm going to cut these sentiments out separately so that I could stack them on top of each other. This is kind of like my card base. It's a very tiny little card. It is 3 7/8 by 2.5 inches, and then I scored it at 1 7/8, and although that is the size of the finished piece, as I'm doing it in the video, there's just an extra slither at the bottom because I wasn't 100% sure at that point how large I needed the card base to be. So I do cut that off at a later date, but the measurements that I gave you fit perfectly. So I've added that green piece there on top, and then I'm adding the red piece on top of that. And at this point, I think it looks quite Scottish, kind of like tartany, which I think is really nice. These dies are made to kind of be Christmas, but you could definitely, I think, use them in lots of different ways. And then I'm just adding some craft glue onto the back of the gold piece here, and this just adds a nice kind of metallic finish to the project. And I always think that metallics do just kind of give a nice elegance, especially for holiday and Christmas projects. So now I'm just going to cut that sliver off of the bottom, and then I have my sentiment here that I've cut into 2 strips, and I'm just adding some foam tape onto the back of that just to be able to stick that down. And I think these kind of like mini cards could be used as mini cards on their own. And I think that they work really nicely, especially for people that don't necessarily celebrate Christmas but celebrate the holidays. So I think that's really nice, especially with the season's greeting sentiment. It's kind of like all-inclusive, which is really nice. And although these are more kind of Christmas colours, I did, like I said, make some in a few different shades. So this is using silver brushed cardstock and then some purple shades, which I think is really pretty, and then I heat embossed the sentiment onto black cardstock with white embossing powder just so that that stood out a little bit more. And again, I think this works really nice for Christmas, but I think any kind of sentiment on top would work really nicely for lots of different occasions. And then I also did one with blues, 2 different shades of blue, and then a brushed gold cardstock as well. And I changed the layers up on that and used the gold in the middle layer instead of the top layer. So that's my first project to share with you today, using metallics in more of a subtle way. Next up, I'm using the Christmas ornament border set. Now this comes as kind of like a 3 kind of set, so you get the 2 different borders pieces that you can cut out the actual baubles on, or you can cut the baubles excuse me, or the ornaments. In the UK we call them baubles, but I understand that I don't think many other countries do. The ornaments, if you cut it out like just on its own with the inside piece, it would cut it from a piece or like a panel of cardstock and stay in the panel, but you've got those two side pieces, and I'm just cutting a tiny little piece just on the edge there. It didn't kind of line up exactly how I wanted it to, but when I do the second layer it does line up perfectly, so that was user error. So that was cut from some Huckleberry fusion cardstock from FSJ, and then here I've got a piece of vellum, and I just want the kind of solid piece, so I've added the two edges either side of the ornament piece, and then I'm just going to remove that ornament piece and then run that through the die cutting machine, and that's going to cut the exact size that I want it to be. And I'm going to place that behind this blue ornament piece, but I want to just add a little bit of extra definition to this, so I'm using some Huckleberry Fusion ink, and I'm just blending some of that onto the bottom of the ornaments here, just to give, like I said, a little bit of extra dimension. I could have added some like sparkle spray and things like that. I think that would look really nice as well, but I'm just adding the ink onto this, and I do think that makes quite a bit of difference. And then I'm just adding a really tiny little dots of the craft glue here, just to stick that down onto the vellum piece. So I'm just lightly kind of sticking that down to start with, and then once I'm happy I'm going to place an acrylic block over the top to let that glue dry. Then next up I have an A2 size card base here, and I have foiled the Essential Glimmer Rectangles Glimmer Hot Foil plates onto that using champagne foil, and this just adds another element of metallic onto the card, and I think it's, again, like in a subtle way, I think it just works really nicely with the blues in the ornaments. And then I have also cut the toppers of the ornaments from gold mirror card, and that gold mirror card works really well with the champagne foil. They're kind of like the same kind of hue of gold, which is really nice, so everything kind of works together. So I'm just figuring out where I want the toppers of the ornaments to be before I stick anything down, and then before I stick the ornament piece down I'm going to stick the toppers down first. So I'm just using some more craft glue for that, adding tiny dabs onto the back of that, and then I can just use my tweezers just to help me out where I want to stick them down. And then I have the ornament piece here, and I'm just again adding a very fine line of glue just around where the cardstock is, because I don't want you to be able to see the glue through the vellum. Obviously you could do this in loads of different ways. You could add lots of different colours, like two-tone of colours and things. That will work really nice, but I quite liked the vellum behind. I've stamped the sentiment there from the To You and Yours stamp set, this time using the Huckleberry Fusion ink, just so that the blues all match. Added some foam tape onto that, and I'm just placing that down onto the card. And then to finish off I have cut some little pieces of twine and cut them into bows. I think it kind of helps ground the image a little bit more. Although they could potentially still be sort of flying in the air, I think the bows just help to, like I said, ground it a little bit. So just using some more of the craft glue there just to stick those bows down. And then again I'm going to stick something heavy on those bows while they dry, just to hold them in place. And that's the second card finished. Like I said, I think that the metallic elements work really nicely. I do think that kind of light gold colour works really nicely with the blues. So my last project here, I'm creating kind of like a tag, I suppose, but you could use it as an ornament as well. And these are the Kaleidoscope Christmas tree dies. And these, again, like the plaid set, layer up one on top of another. So I'm going to cut the 3 different layers here from 3 shades of green cardstock. Kind of like the darkest shade at the bottom going up to the lightest shade at the top. So just running that through the Platinum 6 here. And then once I've run that through with the 3 shades of green, I'm just using the tool and one just to poke out all of the extra little bits. Although this is made to be a Christmas tree, I definitely think you could probably use this for different things. I think it's just a really pretty shape. So that's the middle layer, and then I'm just doing the exact same thing with the top layer. And then again, I'm going to add tiny dabs of craft glue onto the back of those and stick them one on top of another. And then I have cut the star topper for the tree twice from Mirror Gold cardstock, and I'm just sticking those down so one is kind of on the back, so that when I attach all of this tag together, it's going to be finished from the back of the tag as well as the front. So I'm just adding a tiny dab of glue there on the top. And then I have cut another one of the darkest shades of the green cardstock, so the more solid layer, and I'm going to stick that onto the back of the tag as well. And like I said, I'm kind of making this as a tag for a present or a gift, but I definitely think you could probably use it just as a nice ornament as well. I'm taking the sentiment from the To You and Yours stamp set, and I'm going to stamp that onto some candy apple cardstock using clear pigment ink. Just using an anti-static powder tool there onto the cardstock, and then using the clear pigment ink just to ink up that stamp, and then I can stamp that down onto the cardstock. And then I'm going to apply some white embossing powder. I can then tap off the excess, and then I can heat set that, and then I'm using a Nestabilities circle die to cut that out. And then I have also cut out a solid piece of the candy apple cardstock as well, so that I can add that onto the back of the tag. And if you were to make this as a tag, that would just leave a kind of tiny little space for you just to say to whoever, love yourself. So that would help if you did want to make it as a tag for a present, but it does just finish off the back of it nicely so that you can't see that foam tape in between. So just using some tape runner there, and then I can stick that onto the back of the tag. And then I'm just going to take some gold thread and just thread that through the top so that I could adhere that onto a gift if I wanted to, or like I said, you could just hang that up as a nice ornament as well. I really love those layered dies. I think they are so pretty, and it's all nice and finished on the back as well. So that was a quick look at adding metallic elements in a clean and simple way to holiday or Christmas projects. Links to the products that I used will be in the description bar on YouTube and also over on my blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.